I am Dr. Jaya Sharma from GLA University, Mathura. I am going to present my paper on a transitivity analysis to print media discourse illustrations from editorial. The present research proposes an analysis of different ideologies, drawing on the transitivity analysis, an offshoot of systemic functional theory proposed by Halliday, using as a case study 4 editorials from the esteemed Indian daily, The Hindu and the Indian Express, to learn how different ideologies are propagated through the interpretation of the same event. So before going towards my research, I would like to just give an introduction of the terminology that I have used, that is editorial, first one. So editorials are the most important part of the newspaper because they not only report the event but also gives us the opinion of the editor, who is the most important person in that newspaper, or in that sense we can say that gives the opinion of the newspaper to the public to form an opinion of the common people. So editorials that lived in perspectives of the key events are geared to steer readers' opinion towards better understanding of the world, are not only the precise means but also a prerogative for the construal of opinion to analyze and interpret different ideologies as well as language used in generalistic discourse. So then the ideologies, yes, ideologies are the patterned clusters of imbued ideas and concepts, including particular representations of power relations. So, because my paper analyzes the text from the point of view of transitivity. So, first of all, I would like to give the introduction of what is transitivity. So transitivity is a global property of an entire clause in English. An activity is carried over or transferred from agent to a patient. So transitivity in traditional sense involves at least 2 participants and an action that is effective in some way. Transitivity can be better understood by studying clausal functions propagated by M.A.K. Halliday, who has given the idea of metafunction. Language is developed in relation to 3 social functions referred to as metafunction, and the term metafunction was adopted to suggest that function was an integral component within the overall theory. And then what is metafunction? The crux of the theory that was given by M.A.K. Halliday, that transitivity analysis, it contains the 3 metafunctions, the experiential or ideational. That ideational function, it shows the clause as representation of worldly experience. The interpersonal clause, that shows as exchange and interaction between people, and the textual, that shows the clause as meaning and structuring. In the present study, the text is analyzed on the basis of ideational clause, in which the experiences of the world are reflected through grammar of clause and represent happenings. And then I would like to just introduce those processes, those are involved in this transitivity analysis. Under this grammatical system of transitivity, the word of experience is construed into a set of process types. Each process provides its own framework for construing a particular experience. There are 6 types of processes: material, relational, mental, verbal, existential, behavioral, as outlined by Halliday. And then the theoretical framework of my paper is dependent on Halliday's transitivity system. So it involves 6 processes, as I told. So material process, this is process is in clause. It depends on the verbal phrases, those are there, and on the basis of that we divide on material process. So all the verbs, those indicate process of doing. So the process expresses the notion that a participant actor does something which may be done to some other participant, that is called the goal. And then there is mental process, accounts for the process of sensing. It involves states of mind or psychological phenomena. 2 participants are involved in this, the sensor and the phenomena. And then relational process, a process of being, serves to establish a relation between 2 separate entities. Something is being said, something else in relational clause. So the participants are carrier and attribute or identifier and identified or token or value. And then behavioral process, that is physiological and psychological behavior. It has only one participant, that is behavior. And then there is verbal process, the process of saying. It involves sayer, receiver, and verbiage or projected and projecting. So existential process represent existence or happening. The existential process is realized by their construction. That is, the participant is existent. And so dominance of certain type of process reflect text characteristics. And then the method that I have applied, that is study corpus, that I have taken the data for the present study comprises two editorials from two most widely read print media, the Indian Express and the Hindu, each for 2 consecutive days, 23rd and 24th September 2021. Started in 1932, the Indian Express is one of the most popular newspapers, and it started in 1889 as daily. The Hindu is a newspaper of record and is the second most circulated newspaper in India. The editorial under consideration put to test the situation of the country in the wake of two political groups, AUKUS and QUAD, formed in the world politics. And then regarding that AUKUS and QUAD, the foreign policy of any country is meant to protect its core values, interests, ideologies, and moreover progress. The happening in the world also play an important role in shaping the policies of the country. Recent developments in the politics of the world brought into existence two powerful groups, AUKUS, that is a trilateral pact that was announced on 15 September 2021. The three parties to the pact are Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The pact includes cooperation of the three on cyber capabilities, artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, and additional understanding capabilities. And then QUAD, which was revived in 2017. It was formed in 2008 but revived in 2017, is a strategic security dialogue among the United States, Japan, India, and Australia. To sustain better relationship in the field of defense as well as economy in the wake of post-COVID era, these groups are formed. So the editorial taken for the study in the present paper put to test the challenges as well as opportunities available for the India ensuing the formation of these groups. And then the article scrutinizes the editorials of divergent political orientation. The Hindu and the Indian Express is undertaking to play up their perspective to construe ideology by foregrounding of different lexical choices as well as linguistic patterns. These truths are reflective of their orientation towards a particular opinion. This also highlights how rainbow of meanings are brought out through prism of different linguistic patterns and different registers. The text is tagged, analyzed, and all the processes and the participants and the circumstances are examined to reflect how the language verbalizes more than semantic content. It communicates different opinions, voices, attitudes, and ideologies in correlation with the facts being talked about to bring the reader down to adopt its perspective. So now this is data analysis on the basis of Halliday's definitions of transitivity, identification of the process types in two sets of corpora was done. On the basis of process categorization and process definition, all the 6 processes were identified and tagged and analyzed. So this is the result. Total 94 clauses from the Hindu editorials were analyzed. All the 6 processes types appeared in the text. Total 110 clauses were tagged and analyzed from the Indian Express. 5 processes types appeared in the text. In both the media, the dominance was of material process, that is indicative of more of the action, and the analysis shows the following detail. That is, in Indian Express, that material process that was in 74 clauses that formed 67% of the total, and in the same way, the Hindu 39 clauses were there out of 94 that formed 41% of the total. So that was the dominant process in the whole, and that showed that more action is required. And then there was relational process that shows that one thing is the another, and that was in 22 clauses we found that, and that was 20%. And in mental, that was in 10 clauses, and that was in 9%. And rest of the 3 were minorly used, they were not used in that sense. And then again in the Hindu also the same thing was there. The relational process was the second one, and mental, they were at equal 16% they formed. And so this was the, and then there is graphical representation of the same, that is that material process formed the major part of that analysis. And then this is how that was percentage of that. And then how that different material process, mental process, and relational process, that main 3, how they reflect different ideologies when we just go for that, when we analyze that. So the analysis of the corpus shows different ideological orientation on the part of both newspapers on the formation of the group AUKUS, with the formation of AUKUS, US has shared its world-class submarine technology to Australia, while India has lost hopes as US declared it a one-time pauper. While the Hindu seems to present more of the challenges and opportunities available to India in the wake of these groups, the Indian Express shows that the formation of the group as well as sharing of submarine technology to Australia is like humiliation and ends the hope of getting world-class technology in the naval field, thus paving the way for domination of Australia on Indo-Pacific. So that these are the examples from the Hindu. That is, first I have taken the material process. So this is Paris has recalled its ambassador to Australia. Here in this verb has recalled, we find that material process is there and Paris being the actor and that ambassador to Australia, that is being the goal. So material process in the above clause reflected by has recalled is indicative of the wrathful activity of France on being denied the supply of submarine technology. And this next, if Australia and the US could deceive France, a North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO partner, they ask what is to prevent them from doing the same with lesser allies. Again, there we find that could deceive and is to prevent, that is material process, and in that also we find that that process ascribed to the verbal phrase could deceive and is to prevent clearly mentions the apprehensions for the country to receive deceit in the long term. And then next, the material process again in that newspaper describes that, and in the Indian Express the announcement from Washington from that the US, UK and Australia are to form an alliance against China comes as a resounding slap to the Indian foreign policy establishment trying to ride two horses simultaneously. Here that comes, that forms the material process, and that shows that as a resounding slap, that material process ascribed to comes in combination of resounding clearly indicates the harshness of the opinion of the media towards foreign policy of the country. So that is indicative of different opinion of the editor from that of Hindu. The Hindu only shows that what are the challenges available and what are the consequences, but it is sometimes something critical of that it comes like a humiliation to India when they form that group. And so in that way, we can just ascribe that. And that with nuclear submarine technology, Australia has now been catapulted. This use of this verb as catapulted clearly shows that how the situation of Australia has changed with getting that submarine technology. So material process here in the verbal phrase is indicative of how the transfer of submarine technology has put Australia in major position while pushing India back with loss of its frontline position. So Indian Express being harsh on its opinion regarding India's outlook on the formation of the groups. And then next is that relational process, in that with the sudden announcement of AUKUS, a worry for New Delhi is that verb shows, or that verb ascribes relational process, and the Indian Express showed dissatisfaction on the part of the country and the partial behavior of US and neglect for the country that may have adverse effect in various ways. And in the same way, suggestions and the pleadings with the MEA and PMO have fallen on deaf ears, preoccupied as they are with reinforcing failure in the Himalayas and ignoring the Navy. So relational process here with they as carrier and preoccupied as attributive shows passive attitude of government towards the development going on in the world politics, ensuing its failure to turn the things to its advantage. And then next is, again, that is a relational process. The clarification by Washington that the deal with Australia is one of puts paid to Indian expectation. So relation process in the Hindu is with deal with Australia as carrier and one of as attribute is indicative that the formation of AUKUS with the deal of US and Australia has brought in its trail many challenges and has ended India's hope for getting submarine technologies from US. And then we find mental processes, and then mental processes in the Hindu, some quite septic see this as a sign of what the future might hold for India. So mental process that also forms a big part of the clauses shows a psychological aspect here. The process ascribed towards C indicates that formation of AUKUS and denial of sharing submarine technology is indicative. What course should India adopt as a future prospect for India are hinted here. And some in India were hopeful that the US would consider providing the Indian Navy with nuclear submarine propulsion technology. So this process with some as censor shows that India can still hope for help from US. So this is also indicative of mixed feeling while showing the ideology of the Hindu to be more diplomatic in its opinion. And then The next one, that is mental process in the Indian Express. So why is our foreign policy still hoping to appease? Yeah, in the Hindu, they were just trying to convey the message that all things are not ended here. We can hope for more. But now in Indian Express, we find that why is our foreign policy still hoping to appease Beijing by denying India a blue water navy, the only instrument that gives us punitive capability against Beijing. So the mental process ascribed to the word hoping indicates Indian anguish over the present situation and its inability to cope up with its while still hoping, having hopes to appease China. And then Delhi might consider seeking French help with nuclear submarines. So mental process provides option available for India now. So that is when we just go for or analyze all the processes in mental, relational, material, etc., in on these two papers, we find that both of the papers, they have different ideologies. They have reflected through those processes, like that the Hindu is more of a kind of just giving us that what are the challenges available for India, what are opportunities still available. But the Indian Express is more of critical or humiliating. What is the humiliation we have got in that forming of the AUKUS or transferring the submarine technology, etc. That is reflected there. And so this is the conclusion. Just to conclude, we may say through choices of different lexical bundles and different registers, both the newspapers have shown different ideologies, as the Hindu is more prone to show different aspects of formation of the group and shown the anguish of France on the cancellation or deal with Australia. It indicates mixed feeling on the part of India as being happy that one of the members of the Quad, Australia, has got the submarine technology, as well as India is dissatisfied, rather worried about losing its preeminent place in Indo-Pacific region. So the analysis also shows that the Hindu presents other options available to India after this turn in politics by showing that India will not prefer any of the allies over other and can take help of Russia for technology. So this ideology of the Hindu will have its impact on the reader, that India has options available to take its stance, although there is much loss. The Indian Express, on the other hand, is more critical in its view and incites more of the wrath on Indian foreign policies. It is more worried about eroding naval powers of India. That is a point of concern. So this is the conclusion, and these are my references.
It's a wonderful presentation, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Just when you are sort of analyzing these ideologies, one is editorials are written by different people, right? Even in the same newspaper.
Yeah.
From different, I think, disciplines.
Yes.
So did you take account of that? Second, what were the ideologies that you have described or analyzed, or difference between two newspapers?
Yeah.
Have you also sort of cross-checked with the readers, whatever the ideologies that you have concluded? Did readers also find the same kind of differences? That are the two questions.
Yes, you're right that people from different areas, they present their views in editorials. But in fact, we may say that is the opinion of that newspaper. That's why they publish that in editorials. First thing, and the other thing is that being a reader, I agreed with that it had an impact on me. I have not just asked any of the readers in that sense, but I think it happens when we read, we form our opinion or ideologies in the same way. Like that, if because most of the people, they don't go for the other newspaper. If one is the reader of the Hindu, they will read the Hindu, other will read the Indian Express or so. And so when they read that, so they form that kind of opinion that they have given. I think so.
All right. It's just that maybe if whatever the result that you have got, if it can be cross-checked with some of the regular readers of the newspaper, that will give more sort of validation of the research, I guess.
Next time I will try to do this also when I will write. Thank you.
Nice presentation anyway.
Thank you so much.